Hare Krishna. Today we will be discussing text 27, translation of Srimad Bhagavad-Gita as it is of chapter 13. O chief of Bharatas, whatever you see in existence, both moving and unmoving, is only the combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. Both material nature and the living entity, which were existing before the creation of the cosmos, are explained in this verse. Whatever is created is but a combination of the living entity and material nature. There are many manifestations like trees, mountains, and hills which are not moving, and there are many existences which are moving, and all of them are but combinations of a material nature and superior nature. The living entity. Without the touch of the Supreme Nature, the living entity, nothing can grow. Therefore, the relationship between a matter and the nature is eternally going on. And this combination is affected by the Supreme Lord. Therefore, He is the controller of both the superior and inferior nature. The material nature is created by Him, and the superior nature is placed in His material nature, and thus all these activities and manifestations takes place. Text 28 translation. One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul is ever destroyed, actually sees. Anyone who can see three things, the body, the proprietor of the body or individual soul, and the friend of the individual soul, combined together by good association, is actually in knowledge. Those who are not associated with the soul's friend are ignorant. They simply see the body, and when the body is destroyed, they think that everything is finished. But actually it is not so. After the destruction of the body, both the soul and the super soul exist, and they go on eternally in many various moving and unmoving forms. This Sanskrit word Parameshwaram is something translated as the individual soul, because the soul is the master of the body. And after the destruction of the body, he transfers to another form. In that way, he is the master. But there are others who interpret this Parameshwaram to be the super soul. In either case, both the super soul and the individual soul continue. They are not destroyed. One who can see in this way can actually see what is happening. Text 29 translation. One who sees the super soul in every living being and equal everywhere does not degrade himself by his mind, thus he approaches the transcendental destination. The living entity, by accepting his material existence, adjusts so much suffering, can become situated in his spiritual existence. If one understands that the Supreme is situated in his Paramatma manifestation everywhere, that is, if one can see the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every living thing, he does not degrade himself, and he therefore gradually advances in the spiritual world. The mind is generally addicted to self-centered processes, but when the mind turns to the super soul, one becomes advanced in spiritual understanding. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of a material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. This body is made by material nature under the direction of the super soul, and whatever activities are going on in respect to one's body are not his doing. Whatever one is supposed to do, either for happiness or for distress, one is forced to do because of his bodily constitution. The self, however, is outside all these bodily activities. This body is given according to one's past desires. To fulfill desires, one is given the body, with which he acts accordingly. Particularly speaking, the body is a machine designed by the Supreme Lord to fulfill desires. Because of desires, one is put into difficult circumstances to suffer or to enjoy. This transcendental vision of the living entity, while developed, makes one separate from bodily activities. One who has such a vision is an actual seer. Text 31 translation. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities, which are due to different material bodies, he attains to the Brahman conception, Thus he sees that beings are expanded everywhere. When one can see that the various bodies of living entities arise due to the different desires of the individual soul and do not actually belong to the soul itself, one actually sees. In the material conception of life, we find someone a demigod, someone a human being, a dog, cat, etc. This is material vision, not actual vision. This material differentiation is due to the material conception of life. After the destruction of the material body, the spirit soul is one. The spirit soul, due to the contact with the material nature, gets different types of bodies. When one can see these, he attains spiritual vision, thus being freed from differentiations like a man, animal, big, low, etc. One becomes beautified in this consciousness and able to develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity. How he then sees things will be explained in the next verse. Text 32 translation. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the soul is transcendental, eternal and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. A living entity appears to be born because of the birth of the material body, but actually the living entity is eternal. He is not born, and in spite of his being situated in material body, is transcendental and eternal. Thus he cannot be destroyed. By nature he is full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. Therefore the activities performed due to his contact with the material bodies do not entangle him. Text 33 translation. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. The air enters into water, mud, stool, and whatever else is there. Still it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. Therefore, it is impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can ascertain this. Text 34 translation. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminates the entire body by consciousness. There are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in Bhagavad-Gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place, but is illuminating the whole universe, so as a small particle of a spirit soul, although situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Thus consciousness is the proof of presence of the soul, as sunshine or a light is the proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is a consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is not a production of the combinations of matter. It is the symptoms of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the Supreme Consciousness, is not supreme because the consciousness of one particular body does not share the another body. But the super soul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. There is a difference between a supreme consciousness and individual consciousness. Text 35 translation. One who knowingly sees this difference between a body and the owner of the body and can understand the process of liberation of this bondage also attains to this supreme goal. The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and the super soul. A faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God and thus gradually becomes enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, he can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master teaches his students to get free from material concept of life by various instructions. For instance, in Bhagavad-Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from the materialistic considerations. One can understand that this body is a matter, it can be analyzed with its 24 elements. There is a gross manifestation and the subtle manifestation in the mind and the physical psychological effects. The symptoms of life are the interaction of these features. But over and above this, there is a soul and there is also the super soul. The soul and the super soul are two. This material world is working with the consumption of the soul and the 24 elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and material elements, and also can see the situation of the Supreme Soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have the complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 13th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad-Gita as it is, in the matter of nature, the enjoyer and the consciousness, which ends the chapter. Thank you very much, and continue listening for chapter 14. Hare Krishna.